Michigan has hired Sherrone Moore to be their head coach to replace Jim Harbaugh. Is that a mistake?
You are Locked On College Football, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This is your daily source to stay up to date with all the coaching carousel, realignment, transfer portal craziness in the greatest sport on planet Earth. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So Michigan hires Sherrone Moore after a season in which, in some people's eyes, they were the villain in college football because of Connor Stallions and the sign stealing and everything like that. Michigan fired shots back. We're not the only ones doing it. And everyone else saying, well, you're still doing it and it's not right and everything like that. Hiring Sherrone Moore doesn't exactly tamp all of that down, or does it? I think hiring Sherrone Moore could end up going south for Michigan, not in the way that some people may think. Because Michigan's brand at the moment is one of a national champion to many, and to many others, it is one of, well, it was about Connor Stallions, and it was about the sign stealing, it was about all this sort of stuff, and Sherrone Moore was there. Sherrone Moore was there during it. Except Sherrone Moore is not Connor Stallions, and he wasn't the head coach. And Stallions reportedly, according to all the investigation and the evidence, everything was taking signs for the defense. Not necessarily the offense there. Sherrone Moore potentially being an erroneous hire for Michigan, I don't think has anything to do with the sign stealing allegations. The NCAA, at this point in time, is not going to vacate that national championship. Even if they did, guess what? Michigan fans aren't going to care. They are not going to care. Go ask any fan of a team who has had a major win vacated by the NCAA in college football. Do you think they care? Does anybody care? Were the games played on the field? Last time I checked, they were. And last time I checked, that suspension, everything had played itself out by the time the national championship game had actually rolled around. No, the reason that Sherrone Moore could be a mistake for Michigan is because this is a Michigan team that just won on the back of their defense, not their offense. Now, Sherrone Moore has done a good job in the times he's had to fill in for Jim Harbaugh being the head coach. That's different than being the head coach. You have house money when you're the offensive coordinator taking over the head coaching position for a day. You're auditioning at some level. That's part of the reason Sherrone Moore was ultimately hired. But he wasn't able to keep around the associate head coach, who was also the strength and conditioning coach for Michigan. He's going with Jim Harbaugh to the NFL. And Jesse Minter, who was the architect of this brilliant, masterful, historically good Michigan defense that stifled the nation's leading passer for 2 consecutive seasons, yeah, he's not going to be there. Things are not going to go south in Ann Arbor because sanctions will pile up or because everything will just be branded about Michigan's a bunch of Steelers and Michigan's cheaters and Michigan's this, that, and the other thing. Things could go south in Ann Arbor because this is now a difficult job. This is a challenging job to take over because Jim Harbaugh is not there, and he was always at the center of everything that was happening at Michigan. He is the only coach since 2010 to win consistently at Michigan. Rich Rodriguez, by the way, is often referred to as, oh my gosh, it was a disaster. Rich Rod was terrible. Do you know that Rich Rod has had 4 head coaching jobs in, the modern era of college football? Do you know that he's won at all of them except Michigan? He's currently at Jacksonville State. They just made a jump up to the FBS level. Yeah, they're winning. They're a winning program there. He won games at West Virginia. He took Arizona to their only Pac-12 championship game that they've ever played in. Arizona just had a double-digit win season. You know the last guy to do it there? Rich Rodriguez, 2014. Played in the Fiesta Bowl. Michigan is not an easy job. Jim Harbaugh makes it more appealing. Jim Harbaugh makes it look like a great job. Brady Hoke, you can debate the merits of that particular hire. He's had a lot of ups and downs in his coaching career, and it's not like it was an abject disaster, but it certainly wasn't competing at the highest level. Jim Harbaugh is about to demonstrate his value. He's going to go to the Chargers, and I think he's going to win because they're a head coach away. And Sherrone Moore is going to be left behind at Michigan to understand that filling in on an interim basis is a lot different than being the head coach, being the CEO, having to make all the decisions all the time, running a program, now filling out a staff. These are difficult things to do, and it's happening so late in the cycle. I don't anticipate Michigan being a Big Ten or college football playoff contender next year. Who's starting a quarterback for him? How many playoff contenders don't know who their quarterback is when early February is right around the corner? I don't know of very many. Barring a really competitive battle in spring, I think it could be challenging. But I don't think Michigan missed an opportunity to shed the brand of everything like that. They won the national championship. Everybody knows it. We all watched it happen. And that brand, I don't think, is going to be particularly sticky for the Wolverines football program. What could be sticky is Michigan isn't going to compete for a national championship in the near future. It is going to be an uphill battle for Sherrone Moore because that Michigan job is not as easy as Jim Harbaugh made it look. Let's go to Oklahoma. Let's go to Oklahoma, a place that was the flagship program for quite a while in the Big 12. They've decided they want to go try their luck in the SEC. Have you looked at Oklahoma's schedule next year? Ooh, boy. Ooh, boy. So Dillon Gabriel leaves. He transfers to Oregon, where they've got a bunch of weapons and will be one of the favorites to win the Big Ten. And that leaves behind Jackson Arnold. So Jackson Arnold was a 5-star recruit to Oklahoma. He played in the bowl game against Arizona, a game that Arizona, a good football team, was supremely motivated to play in, by the way. And Jackson Arnold showed some real promise. He's got some growth, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks, but he was 26-45, 361 yards. Not bad for your first career start in college football. So for Jackson Arnold to replace Dillon Gabriel, a guy who completed almost 70% of his passes last year, 30 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, you would love for him to have some ingrained level of stability, but you do not. And like Michigan, Oklahoma can struggle in 2024. Because this is not a hand that you deal to the Sooners and then look up and go, oh, well, you might as well have pocket aces there. You're showing 2 10s in blackjack. You might as well split them at the table. You're feeling good. You're going to have a guy starting his first full season of college football under a third-year head coach that won 10 games a season ago, also won 6 games the year prior. They're going into a significantly tougher conference. They do not have an easy schedule. Their first 4 games are at home. You know what game I would watch for? Just as an upset alert sort of game? First-year head coach John Sumrall at Tulane with his loaded transfer portal class is going to go to Norman, week 3, take on the Sooners. That might be an early upset pick for me here on Locked On College Football. But Jackson Arnold gets each of his first 4 games at home. That's an advantage, and that's where the advantages end for Jackson Arnold and the Sooners. Because they have lost all 5 starters along the offensive line, and Drake Stoops, their leading wide receiver. Okay, I know that Brent Venables has done a good job recruiting. I know that Oklahoma is going to have a roster that'll give you a certain floor of success. But am I convinced that Brent Venables is somebody that is free from having a disastrous season, incapable of doing so? I look at Kalen DeBoer at Alabama and say, every year might not be a championship season, but I can't see him having just abysmally bad seasons because he's won at places that don't have the resources and talent level that Alabama has. I've watched Brent Venables go 6 and 7. That was in year 1. Granted, I'll absolutely give you that. He's now got a brand new quarterback in there. And oh, by the way, they lost their offensive coordinator in the offseason. This is a tricky situation at Oklahoma, to say the least. A brand new offensive line. You've got no Drake Stoops. You do bring in the next 3 leading returning receivers for Oklahoma. That's something. That's something. That helps. But do you think that Jackson Arnold, with a brand new O-line and everything that they're going to have to deal with in the SEC this year, schedule-wise, and it's pretty challenging? They've got LSU, they've got Bama, they've got Tennessee on there. It's not an easy schedule. And they have to play Texas, who's a better football team with a more experienced quarterback. Do you feel great about Oklahoma's chances to win next year? Because I don't. I don't. I don't see Oklahoma as a playoff team come 2024. I think that's a team that's trying to get 7-8 wins, maybe 9. 9 would be outstanding. It would be outstanding. I think that's what they're trying to do and build for 2025. Because in 2024, I don't see it with a first-year quarterback at the helm. Talented though he is, the SEC has got too many good quarterbacks. And I don't think he can replicate Dillon Gabriel's production with a brand new offensive line down his leading receiver from a season ago. So tough times could be ahead briefly in Norman, not forever. But in 2024, I think the deck is stacked against the Oklahoma Sooners. Texas A&M's got a tough road too. Texas A&M, let me tell you about Texas A&M. Well, actually, I'm going to tell you about FanDuel first because that's America's #1 sports book. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. If you like the 49ers to knock off the Chiefs, then go ahead and place your money where your mouth is over at FanDuel. Not only can you bet who will win the Super Bowl, it's Super Bowl 58, by the way. We're old. FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers, join today. You get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Texas A&M is not competing in the SEC in year 1 under Mike Elko. Is that a crazy take? I really don't believe so. In fact, I think it's a certified solid take. I'm joined now by Andrew Stefanik of Locked On Texas A&M. Andrew, am I nuts for being down on the Aggies? Even though I love the Mike Elko hire, I think it finally gets Texas A&M to the nuts and bolts of what it takes to run a winning football program. I think it's really solid. I don't think year 1 is the year that Texas A&M fans should expect to compete in this SEC.
Competing in the SEC is tough. It's tough right now. And you're right. I'm a big Mike Elko guy. I think it's a great hire. The only argument I'd throw back in your face a little bit here is the schedule. The schedule sets up so perfect for the Aggies. Your difficult games are at home. Your easier games are on the road. And Texas A&M's done a good job in the portal. They've done a solid job bringing in talent. But no, I'm not going to fight with you that are they going to compete with, Georgia and, even Missouri's good. Are they going to compete with these really top-end schools right now? Texas, of course, I keep forgetting that we have.
Ole Miss has got to be – Ole Miss has got to be in there for me as well. I love what Ole Miss has done.
I'm a huge – I'm not a huge Ole Miss guy. I think they're going to be good this year. But, yeah, I think I think with the way the SEC is right now, it's hard to make an argument for Texas A&M to really compete there. But I do think – and listen, everybody that knows about Texas A&M knows that you got these 5 stars, and everybody kind of makes a joke at Texas A&M because of what Coach Fisher did and not producing much with that talent. Everybody understands that. But – I think what Mike Elko is doing and what he's going to do will work. And while I don't think this team is going to be hoisting any kind of trophy this year when it comes to the SEC, I do think they'll really get in the mix at some point during his tenure in College Station.
Yeah, they've brought in the number 2 rated transfer portal class according to 24/7 Sports, and that's a reflection both of the volume of players and the caliber of players, and we'll get to some of the high-impact guys there. But one of the reasons that I look at Texas A&M and say, okay, they're on the upward trajectory. You could call me in 2 or 3 years, as in 2025 or 2026, and say, okay, Texas A&M is an SEC contender. I might believe you if you gave me that call from the future. But right now, year 1 under a new coach, sure, there's talent on the roster, but plenty of talent has also departed, and you don't even have a top 5 quarterback. I think when coaches come in and have success right away, think Kalen DeBoer at Washington, for instance, what did he have? Michael Penix coming with him, who he immediately made into one of, if not the best quarterback in the Pac-12 over the last couple of years. It was kind of him, Caleb Williams, and Bo Nix for the last 2 seasons. And I don't think that Texas A&M has that. I think Connor Wigman is good. I think he's a little unproven. I'd like to see a little bit more. But when I can rattle off the top of my head 5 quarterbacks in the SEC who I would decisively take over him. And then there's a bunch of guys right after that that are kind of in the mix. To me, that doesn't spell contender, because if you're going to win a conference as good and as deep as the SEC with a quarterback who's not inside the top 5, you have to have a ridiculous roster. And I think Texas A&M's is good, but I don't think it's going to overpower everyone else.
Exactly. And I'm not going to give you much pushback on the Conor Wigman argument. I agree with you, but I have made the argument that when it comes to ceiling and if it hits for him, watching him play with the athleticism he possesses, I love his ability to get outside of the pocket, and if nothing's there, take off. He throws a pretty football. He has great arm talent. He can really let it fly. He's a quarterback who has a ceiling of top 5. But yes, I'm with you. Projecting your top 16, ranking your 16 quarterbacks heading into next season, I'm not going to have Conor Wigman in my top 5. Now, I do think he should be in that 7 range around there. There's a lot of unproven guys, the kid at Tennessee, kid over to LSU, Oklahoma. There's a lot of unproven, highly ranked quarterbacks in this conference. Yep. You got to remember, Conor Wigman was a 5-star.
Yep.
He's played a few more games than some of these guys. And I think if he stays healthy last year, he would have had a really good year. And I think this conversation would be a little bit different if he stayed healthy last year. But you're right, he still is a bit unproven. And I think he'll prove that this year. I kind of think, my personal take on this, I think when we look at, if we have a conversation at the end of the season next year, I think Conor Wigman will be a top 5 quarterback in the SEC. But heading into the season, I agree with you with the projection of him not being there. But I just, watching this kid play high school, play so far a few games in college, I just think he's got it. I think he's going to be really good. And I love the offensive coordinator hire, what Coach Colin Klein did. I think he's going to really turn Wigman into a star.
I think Wigman has got that potential. I think he and Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, Nico Iamaleava at Tennessee, Garrett Nussmeier down at LSU, they're in that kind of next tier of young, not quite fully proven. Nussmeier probably the most proven of that bunch so far. But you can go down the list: Quinn Ewers, Jackson Dart. I think Jalen Milroe at Alabama is going to be helped tremendously by Kalen DeBoer and Ryan Grubb. When you look at their track record with quarterbacks, Brady Cook just led Missouri to an 11-win season in this SEC. I like what he did quite a bit. Carson Beck at Georgia, of course, is going to be one of the Heisman favorites going into this college football season. But I do think Wigman next year can get into that group. But Texas A&M this offseason, what have you seen in the transfer portal that you like? Who are the impact players in that highly rated transfer portal class that'll stand out for the Aggies this year to, at the very least, give them a chance to improve their win total? Because as you mentioned, their schedule is indeed favorable here. Just so people are aware, they open against Notre Dame, but they've got Missouri at home, they've got LSU at home, they've got Texas at home. They miss Alabama this year. They go at Florida, they go at Mississippi State, at South Carolina, at Auburn. It could be worse. Who from the transfer portal class is going to help Texas A&M increase their win total from 2023?
The number 1 guy is Nick Scorton at Purdue last season, 10-sack guy last year in the Big Ten. A player who, when you just watch, I always tell my listeners over Locked On Aggies, if you're having a bad start to your morning, just go watch his highlight tape last season, because it'll really get you fired up on a Monday morning. But other players, he's the proven guy. He's the proven Power 5 proven player. You've got some other guys like a Des Ricks, was a 5-star recruit to Alabama, wasn't there very long. Coach Saban retires, and now, he's at Texas A&M, a corner. That was a position last year for Texas A&M. The secondary got burned all year long. Coach Elko recognized that, and he's fixed that with a ton. I believe 8 players in the secondary, 3 safeties and 5 corners. Hey, that's a problem. That's a way to fix it, is going and bringing in warm bodies. I've said a ton. I mean, some of these guys, you can't swing and miss 8 times, I don't think. At least a couple of them got to be okay. But a guy I really like is a kid named Donovan Saunders, a corner from Cal Poly. And you kind of go, oh, what? Who cares? Watch the tape. I'm a big tape guy. I'm a big watch the tape guy. You can see the instincts. You can see the things that you need to be a dominant corner in the SEC, and he's got it. Now, how does it compare to the SEC? How does he, move into the SEC? It's going to be interesting. But Coach Elko, what I've loved about this portal class, I can sit here and read through all these names and tell you what each of these guys I think will do. We can do that. But the more significant point here for me is he's diagnosed what's wrong with this roster, who he's lost in the portal, and said, how do I fix these issues? Right after that bowl game, he got busy, and he got busy quick, and he's done a really good job bringing in talent to this roster that I do think gives Texas A&M a chance to be more competitive than a lot of people are giving them credit for next season.
Last thing to wrap up real quick here, Andrew. Your expectations are for Texas A&M to win how many games next year, approximately?
And this is purely based on the schedule. I think Texas A&M can win 8 games next season. I think anything more than that's crazy. I think they can win 8 games. I think you're in that range of 9-3 is crazy. 7-5 you can live with. 8-4 was great. I think that's the range for Texas A&M. But I think they'll win 8 games next year. And some folks will call me I'm crazy, and I appreciate it. And I get it after watching Texas A&M for years. But the Aggies can win 8 football games this year.
College football fans are nothing if not passionate. It's why we appreciate them very much. Andrew Stefanik, host of Locked On Aggies on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Andrew, thanks for stopping by. We've still got more to get to here on Locked On College Football because guess what, everybody? It's Transfer Tuesday. First, of course, we got to talk about real life. I know we come to sports to escape from the crazy realities of real life, but can we just talk for a minute about preparing for that thing that actually transpires, whether our sports teams are winning or losing? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right in the middle of the worst flu season in over a decade, which is not what you would like to hear. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than needing a medication and not being able to get it, but luckily Jace Medical is here to help. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial infections and illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others. This stuff could happen to any of us. You don't want it to happen to you and be caught off guard. Visit jacemedical.com, complete your physician encounter. It will be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com, use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. And a fine Tuesday to all of you out there. Transfer Tuesday, if you will, where every Tuesday on this show, we're going through the most impactful transfers that you've got to know across the entire sport of college football. If you have a submission, by all means, drop it in the comments below or hit me up on X, formerly known as Twitter, at @SMcLaughlinCFB or at @LockedOn_CFB. 2 guys that we need to be aware of today for the 2024 college football season. If you didn't know about them, then when they pop up on your screen come this fall, you would just be puzzled as to, wait, he went there? I thought he was here. Is he making an impact over there? Let's start with Quinshon Judkins. Let's start with Quinshon Judkins, who spent 2 years at Ole Miss and did nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing except produce. A guy who went for over 2,700 yards on the ground in 2 seasons. A lot of running backs would call that a successful 3-year campaign, going for about 900 yards or more in 3 years. I mean, that'd be pretty darn good. Judkins did it in 2. This is a dynamic, versatile running back who, oh, by the way, might not be the top guy. He could be the top guy. It's going to depend on the day. This is an embarrassment of riches for Ohio State to have at the running back position. Quinshon Judkins is a certified killer. Absolute beast. He is a really, really strong force in the backfield. And so what does that mean for Ohio State? To be able to pair him with Travion Henderson, it means you're going to get the best out of not just each other, but Will Howard as well. So Will Howard's been in college football for a few seasons now, and he's a guy whose numbers don't pop off the screen. When you look at them, you go, oh, wow, he's only had 1 season completing over 60% of his passes. Well, that's nothing to bat your eyelashes at. That's not super sexy. That's not anything like that. By the way, do you know the name Michael Penix? You might. He was at Washington. He threw for a few yards over the last couple of seasons and was playing in a big game most recently on January 8th. Michael Penix had just 1 season of college football in which he had completed over 60% of his passes prior to going to Washington and getting paired with the best receivers he'd been with the best offensive line he had ever had. Will Howard is going to have an elite cadre of receivers, the likes of which I don't think he's had at Kansas State. Emeka Egbuka likely to be the number 1 option there. Sure, Marvin Harrison Jr. is no longer in that particular room, but that's wide receiver U up there in Columbus. Will Howard is going to have an elite supporting cast, probably the best offensive line he's had yet in his college career. Now, the most productive season that Howard has had as the leader of a team was 2022. Kansas State won their first Big 12 championship since 2012. It had been a minute over there for the Wildcats, but Will Howard led them to that spot. And how did he do that? Was he slinging the ball all over the field? No, he didn't even start every game that season. He became the starter as the year went on and put up good numbers, a 15-4 touchdown to interception ratio. What else did he have? What was the other component of that Kansas State offense? I'm trying to put my Oh, that's right. He had Deuce Vaughn in the backfield. Deuce Vaughn, who was a certified stud. You talk about not the size of the dog in the fight, the size of the fight in the dog. Deuce Vaughn was a baller. Deuce Vaughn that year went for over 1,500 yards on the ground. And that is the most successful team season that Will Howard had whilst at Kansas State. You pair that with his best statistical individual season a year ago from a completion percentage standpoint, and you have the makings of somebody who is going to be fully supported the way he clearly needs to be, the way most quarterbacks need to be, though not all. Will Howard is not a bona fide first-round pick. He's not going to be a Heisman contender next year. He's someone who needs to go out and execute the offense at a high level. I don't think he needs to be C.J. Stroud. I don't think he needs to be a Justin Fields type player for Ohio State. I think he needs to go out there and be the best version of Will Howard, and Quinshon Judkins allows him to do that. Because when you have two running backs in the backfield, not one but two, who can carry the load, who can be number one backs, who can have a hot hand, create explosive plays, help you in the check down and passing game as well, that is a tremendous help to a quarterback. And we know that Howard is not like the aforementioned Michael Penix, where he can drop back 40 to 50 times, throw the ball, we can run it for 40 yards and still have 500 yards of offense. That's not his game. He has to be supported. And Quinshon Judkins provides that. That is probably the best running back tandem in all of college football. I haven't heard one yet that is better than Travion Henderson, who went for almost 1,000 yards this past year, and Quinshon Judkins, who has only had 1,000-yard seasons. So Ohio State skill positions are an embarrassment of riches. And they're a bona fide Big Ten national title college football playoff contender in 2024, and hope should be high in Columbus, as high as they've ever been under Ryan Day, at least since 2019. That was a very good team. Chris Olave was on that team. Justin Fields was on that team as the quarterback. They were very good, lost to Clemson in, shall we say, controversial fashion to Buckeye fans in the college football playoff semifinal. This Ohio State team is all in, and bringing in a guy like Quinshon Judkins, most teams would look at Travion Henderson and say, oh my goodness, yippee-ki-yay, he's back. Yippee-ki-yay, look at that, we've got our number one running back, we don't need to add talent there. Not how Ohio State is thinking. They're going, we can get another talented playmaker? Yeah, let's get him the ball. Let's keep these guys fresh. Let's prevent them from having a higher likelihood of getting banged up. That is a dynamic running back tandem. I think you got a little thunder and lightning with Henderson being a little bit more thunder and Judkins being a little bit more lightning. That's a fantastic combo. They complement what Will Howard wants to do. He's going to be as supported, probably more supported than he's ever been in his college career as a quarterback. Speaking of quarterbacks, let's move to the other Power 2 conference. There are 4 power conferences, but let's be honest with ourselves, shall we? It's the top 2, and then it's the next 2. And the next 2 are above everybody else, but they're still the next 2. So the Big Ten is where Ohio State will contend. Over in the SEC, you may not think a lot about Arkansas. You probably don't think often about the Razorbacks, who missed a bowl game this year. KJ Jefferson's gone. He's in the Big 12 at UCF now, and Sam Pittman is there, and they've got a new offensive coordinator, and it's Bobby Petrino. Who'd they bring in at quarterback? Wait, if there's no KJ Jefferson, some of you, if you're really young listening to or watching this show, don't know Arkansas football without KJ Jefferson at the helm. Well, now they've got Talen Green. Talen Green comes to Arkansas by way of Boise State. The Broncos have swapped out Talen Green for Malachi Nelson, the former USC 5-star recruit, who, to my knowledge, has not taken a snap in his college career, but is immensely talented. Boise State is building a Mountain West contender up there and could be the G5 team we see in the playoff next year. That's a different conversation. This one is about the Arkansas Razorbacks because Talen Green brings a lot of the same traits as KJ Jefferson. He is not a supremely high completion percentage guy, 59% over his 2 years as a Bronco playing on the Smurf turf up there in Boise. He is a big guy. He can move. He's got a huge arm, but he is streaky, and sometimes he struggles with turnovers. Why am I bringing up Talen Green on this particular show? Why am I bringing up a guy who's going to a sub-500 non-bowl participant team in 2023, coming from the Mountain West, going to the Power 5, 25 touchdowns, 15 interceptions? That's not exactly what you would like to see during your tenure as a starter. Why am I bringing him up? Because Arkansas does not have to radically change their philosophy. And I do not believe that Bobby Petrino is being brought in with this Sam Pittman football team. He's the CEO, head coach. I do not believe that he has brought in Bobby Petrino to radically shift what Arkansas is going to do next year. I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure how to feel about the Razorbacks. They're not incredibly relevant there. Here's what I do know about Talen Green. When he is off, he is way off, and you're going to struggle to compete and move the football and complete basic passes. When he is on, he looks like a borderline first-round NFL draft pick. And this Arkansas team is going to be supremely motivated with a coaching staff that is going to be looking for an iconic win to define their season, to propel them forward, to keep them off of the hot seat. Those motivations are very real over there in Fayetteville. And so for Arkansas to bring in Talen Green, I just wonder if that's not a guy who can't, on any particular Saturday, catch lightning in a bottle, have that great game, utilize his legs, sling it accurately with a ginormous arm, work with a veteran offensive coordinator in Bobby Petrino, and pull an upset next year. That's what I'm looking for from Arkansas, because that might be what they need to do. You have a season that was, by all accounts, a disappointment after getting to a bowl game the previous year. Things were trending up. Now things are trending back down. Things are trending back down after the 2023 season, and you don't want a repeat of that. And an upset win somewhere on that schedule for Arkansas, if Talen Green can become the most accurate he has been in his career, which is not a crazy concept for transfer portal quarterbacks at all. I go back to Michael Penix again, was not a high completion percentage guy at Indiana. He gets better support around him at Washington, and boom, he's the nation's leading passer. I'm not projecting that for Talen Green, but don't be surprised if you turn on your TV and you go, wait, is that KJ Jefferson? No, it's not KJ Jefferson playing for the Hogs over there in Fayetteville. It's Talen Green. And he is a tremendously talented guy, and the Hogs wanted to bring him up from the G5 to the Power 4 ranks for a reason. They see something in him that makes him appealing. And I think it's a lot of the KJ Jefferson vibes, and do not be surprised if they're able to put the formula together to pull an upset led by the former Boise State Bronco. Appreciate everyone listening. I'll see you next time, and until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.